Hello, everyone. I'm Rabbi Edmond Weiss, and I would like to share with you today some of my thoughts about Parasha Breshit, the first parasha in the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible famously begins with the beginning of time, but it ends with the ascendancy of Prince Cyrus in Persia and the return of the Jews from Babylonian exile to Jerusalem. Now, the account of creation that takes place in the beginning of our Bible appears twice in two rather different forms, most notably where in the sequence of things the human being is created. In Genesis 1, God first creates all the vegetation on earth, and then he adds the animals to that vegetation, and then finally on the sixth day he creates humankind, male and female, at the same time, both Adam and Eve. In Genesis 2, in contrast, he begins by creating Adam, and then he sets up the garden, vegetation first, animals second, and then sometime later, Eve is created from the body of a sleeping Adam. Now, you would think that this sharp contradiction occurring in the very few pages of the text would end immediately all claims of the literal truth and inerrancy of the text, as anyone zealous enough to regard the creation myth as science must deal with the fact that one of these two accounts must be false. There is also the absurdity of an earth with water on it existing before the sun is placed in the sky. One must also notice that in the first version, God has one name, El or Elohim, whereas in the second version, he has a different name, Yud-He Vav-He, the unpronounceable Tetragrammaton or Hashem. The idea of taking the Bible literally persists today in some communities, but began to fall out of favor under the influence of Maimonides. And Maimonides, I'm sure, was influenced, as you know, by Aristotle. So let's talk about Aristotle for a moment. Aristotle is nowadays the most frequently discussed of the Greek philosophers, but his works almost disappeared if they hadn't been preserved by the Moors in North Africa. Because the Moors and Muslims kept Aristotle alive, the two greatest theologians of the Middle Ages, Thomas Aquinas and Moses Maimonides, were able to read him and absorb some of the genius. Remember that Moses Maimonides was working as a physician to a Muslim potentate in Egypt. Uh, Maimonides, though today he is perhaps the most beloved of all by all traditional Jews, was considered a radical in his day, forever at odds with the Jewish leadership. His books were often suppressed, and he was threatened more than once with excommunication. His championing of Aristotle was a particularly egregious problem because Aristotle had asserted that the universe had always existed, and this notion was singularly repugnant to the Jewish hierarchy, who considered the creation of the world by Adonai, as we discussed a moment ago, to be an unassailable truth, the foundation of the Torah. Maimonides, of course, with his insistence on the incorporeality of God, ein guf, no body, no dimensions, no attributes, was already attacking the literal truth of the Torah in his famous Guide to the Perplexed. The Maimonidean God cannot be in a place, and he cannot make sounds like saying this is good, and he cannot smell odors, enjoying the sacrifices. He cannot interact with matter of any kind, and as he explained in his Guide for the Perplexed, the accounts in the Bible are metaphors, not factually true, in a form suitable for those who cannot grasp philosophical abstraction. The notion of a universe that has always existed, that has no first cause, is beyond the grasp of most people who think that every event has a cause. Maimonides realized this, just as he realized that his championing of Aristotle would cost him his influence in the Jewish world. So the first of his famous 13 principles, I believe with perfect faith that the Creator, blessed be your name, is the author and guide of everything that has been created, and that God alone has made, does make, and will make all things. that was meant to assuage fears about his religious loyalty. It seems to me that the main audience for this credo is those who suspected his Aristotelian sympathies. It's meant to disarm those attacks, and I also suspect that the entire 13 principles, if you really want to know, I think, dear as they are to the Jewish tradition, are Maimonides' accommodation with those of limited scientific and philosophical education. That is, most of Maimonides' rabbinical contemporaries. The existence of the universe is an effective proof of the existence of God for many theologians. As Mortimer Adler put it, if the universe was created from nothing, then God is what created it. And if the universe has always existed, then God is what keeps it from vanishing. But Adler goes on to point out that this proof merely establishes what he calls a pagan God. The mere fact that some thing or force created the universe does not mean that that force or thing has a special fondness for the Jews or a particular repugnance for pork. Uh, just because something is keeping the universe from going out of existence does not mean that it cares about human conduct or publishes evil or worries about what day they celebrate the Sabbath. Although there is surely a universe, there is no evidence at all of a divine plan or control system. Even nature, which some take to be the manifestation of God's personality, is clearly indifferent to humankind, not helpful or supportive. And the ultimate plan of nature, plan in quotes, as manifest in the second law of thermodynamics, is the destruction of all worlds and all life, and that is where the universe is headed. That is, proving the existence of God by cosmological arguments is irrelevant to the Jewish religion or any other religion, save those that equate God with nature, as did Spinoza. Frequently, the Chabad newsletter contains a startling revelation on how modern physics keeps confirming the stories of creation that occur in the Genesis or the Zohar. But of course, the findings of modern physics parallel the creation stories in only superficial and imprecise ways. And most important, the origin of the universe cannot be used to adjudicate among, for example, the three conflicting notions of the Sabbath preferred by the three Abrahamic religions. Also, the so-called Big Bang Theory does not even confirm the creation of the universe ex nihilo, out of nothing. We do not know how many Big Bangs have occurred, how many cycles of the current universe have transpired, or how many Big Bangs are currently going on right now inside the black holes that are scattered about the universe. God, as used in the scriptures, is the ultimate figure of speech, the most complex linguistic construct, and every sentence in which the word God appears is best understood figuratively. The glory of Tanakh, our Bible, and other Jewish literature is that it can be understood by children in childish terms, that's God with a long beard, and at the same time stimulate the most challenging philosophical arguments and explorations by those who understand it at ever higher levels of abstraction, such as Maimonides and Spinoza. The great Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan of blessed memory once said that it is very hard to get people to take the Bible seriously without taking it literally. It is a pity that most of the people who study the Bible closely cannot see it for the intensely interesting and important book that it is. It's not a glorified children's story about how the universe began.